Every October, I start to grow a different crop than my normal. Giant fluorescent mushrooms. Our little town here just goes nuts for Halloween. One year I was walking around and I saw 4 garage bands performing, 2 margarita wagons, and a Jello shop mobile ship that was just weird. My favorite part, though, is the decorations. People get so creative and they put so much work into it. Down the street, there's this great carnival of terror. Across the street, our friends put on this totally demented zombie baby wonderland. So Clicky and I were thinking about it, and it's like, we just can't compete with scary, so let's try something else. So instead, we decided to go with magical. In one of our favorite games from a decade ago, Skyrim, they have this giant underground cavern full of glowing mushrooms, and we thought, yeah, let's do that. And since then, I have been making more and more mushrooms each year, getting better at construction and methods. I'm Gardener Coo, and I'm going to show you how to make these giant glowing Amanita mushrooms. So, for supplies, you're going to need a fence board, chicken wire, the widest width available at the hardware store, a staple gun, zip ties, old newspapers, which are, kind of a challenge to find these days, white glue, concrete filling tube, some scrap wood, and then the color, of course. You need primer, exterior white house paint, fluorescent paint, and finally polyurethane for weather protection. All right, so the first step to making this giant mushroom is ripping the fence board. You want to do 3 for a large mushroom, like a 5-foot one, but you can get away with a simple X for like a 2-foot one. And you want to use fence boards because they are solid wood, so they won't delaminate like plywood would in a watery situation. And we're going to be doing a lot of papier-mâché, and they're going to be outdoors. You want to make sure you do 2 screws in the center because otherwise they'll just rotate, so don't do 1 screw, do 2. And then the next step is you want to put a cylindrical object in the center of your wood. This is just to provide structure for the top of the mushroom, so it stays rounded and it'll just give you a guide on where the center is and how to make it look best. I tried a dollar store basket, then a nursery 5-gallon pot, and finally ended up with a 15-gallon plastic pot. All right, let's give it a go with the basket on. We'll see how this works. I'm not hopeful, but you never know. And then if that doesn't work, we'll switch over to taking the basket off and then putting it on. I want to flip it over and staple gun that chicken wire to one of the fence boards. This is working just fine. And you want to make sure you keep your through line so you can just follow one line of chain. All right, so we're going to flip it and then we're going to go all the way around and then staple it back to that same line. I'm going to use 2 pieces of chicken wire here because this is such a large mushroom. So on smaller ones you won't need to do 2 pieces, but on the large babies, yes you will. You want to make sure you leave a lot of room for creativity and for shaping. You need a lot of extra wire to play with for that. Cut it off and do the same with the other side. Join the 2 pieces together with zip ties and go down one edge to where the top chicken wire meets the fence boards. Zip tie this to the bottom and then start working your way around the base, cutting and tying and shaping as you go. Your first rounded edge is probably going to be your worst one, so don't get too precious about it. You'll just redo it when you've gone all the way around. This is more of art than a meticulous method, so just go slowly, cutting off excess as needed. And remember, you can always add more wire and always cut more wire later. I redid a few edges several times. Pro tip, make sure the zip tie knob is on the inside of the mushroom. That and any pointy bits of chicken wire. Also, you want to have those pointed inside. And now it's time for papier-mâché. Now this part gets a bit messy, so you need to wear painting clothes, a tarp, and something to put your mushroom on because you don't want to be leaning over down all day. Start with your papier-mâché mixture. Mix white glue with warm water in a 50-50 mix. Not too much at one time, you can always make more. You use warm water because this kind of helps the glue dissolve into the water easier. And then mix thoroughly with a paint stirrer and set it aside. While the papier-mâché glue cools, tear apart the papier-mâché. Experiment with size and what works for you. Just try not to go too large. It becomes difficult to work with them when they get waterlogged with glue. Then you want to start at the center of your mushroom and work your way around. Lay the pieces so the edges are overlap and you're creating a solid layer. Try not to do this on a windy day because the wind can pick up the paper and mess up all your work. Get unexpected wind, you can always just use small rocks. After you do a full layer, you need to do a second layer. Now trust me, it may seem like overkill, but you really need to do this. The first year I made these mushrooms, they were so fragile, I ended up having papier-mâché them a second layer and wasting all of that paint. After the second layer is done and dry, important, flip the mushroom and do the same to the base. The only change here is you want to leave a hole in the center for attaching to the mushroom stem later. So once the papier-mâché is dry, it's time to move on to paint. Prime the mushroom and the concrete filling tubes with Kills Mildew Primer. These mushrooms are going to be outside, exposed to the elements, and mildew is your enemy. I did some Christmas decorations last year, and they got all mildewed out, even though I had primed them. But I didn't use an exterior paint layer, so both paint stages are necessary. After painting with primer, then you want to use a white exterior house paint, that second step. And not white like you use in your house or that you have sitting in your garage. You want to go to the hardware store and you want to pick up a can with absolutely no tint and have them shake it for you while you're at it. The reason you do this is fluorescent paints really show up best on pure white surfaces. I mean, the whiter, the better. And if you look at your house trim, it's actually probably some version of cream, not white. So go for the pure white. The lettering on the concrete tubes will need 2 layers or 2 coats of that white house paint to really fully occlude the ink. So now onto the fluorescents. I'm using Milo's acrylic fluorescent red, link in the description. It's got a little more orange in it than the other fluorescent red paints out there, so I think that's honestly perfect for an Amanita. Amanitas, if you aren't familiar, are a mushroom native to temperate forests in North America and Europe. It kind of erupts out of the ground with these giant red mushroom caps and these just really cute white polka dots. I really look forward to seeing them every year. So you want to paint the mushrooms with 2 coats of paints. Some colors might even need 3. Fluorescent paints really just don't carry a lot of pigment. You could also do this with spray cans, but I find you get a lot more bang for your buck when you use a pourable paint. After the fluorescent paint is dry, flip and repeat the process, prime and paint. I also get the spots for the Amanita ready at this time. Cut the styrofoam balls in half and give them the same treatment. Then onto fluorescents. First, I paint the gills. Feel free to just skip this step entirely. I divide the mushroom cap into 4 portions of 90 degrees off from each other. I then mark the corresponding marks in the center, and then I go to one mark 90 degrees off and I make kind of a loop in a wide arc. Repeat this for the other 3 marks. Then you want to subdivide each of those in half and you're gilled. Next, paint the sections in between with Wildfire optical white paint. This stuff is just crazy expensive. I tried using other white paints on the market, but none of them really fluoresced. So I finally found this blog post on a Halloween forum where this person did a whole bunch of tests on white paint on the market and just showed that Wildfire is really the only one that works. I'll put the blog link in the description. So I use this paint sparingly. And that's why I don't use the white paint like on the stems like natural mushrooms. I would go paint bankrupt. Please hit like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video, and also send me your creative Halloween decoration ideas. So white fluorescent paint is actually blue, but for some reason our brains interpret it as white. This has something to do with the way the light hits the cones in our eyes. They also put this pigment in laundry detergents to make your white clothes and your shirts, whatnot, to make them seem whiter. I mean, more you know. All right. Back to the mushrooms. So after the bottom is dry, you want to flip it and then glue on the Amanita like half spheres. Scatter them randomly and don't go too heavy. You want to fix them to the mushroom with foaming Gorilla Glue. Careful not to use too much. I haven't found this to be the great way to attach them to the mushrooms, but I haven't been able to find another one. Many other glues haven't worked. I would love some ideas. Finally, onto construction. Cut out of a scrap wood a round that will fit snugly into the concrete tube. Once you have a good fit, you want to screw the wood into the center of the mushroom cap on the bottom. Make sure the glue is dry on the Amanita spots before doing this. I was impatient and I ended up popping off a whole bunch of them and I had to just re-glue them. It was a pain. Then you want to lift the mushroom cap onto the concrete tube and then you're just going to put some screws in to secure them together. You're not really dealing with a whole lot of weight here, so don't get too precious about it. Next, you're going to put a fence post into the ground. For this large one, I'm using a 6-foot fence post, and that'll give you the support you need for it to stay where you want it to. So you may be wondering, what do I do with these mushrooms for the rest of the year? Well, the Amanitas, they come off the stems and they store vertically really well in a closet. But really, I just have the coolest guest room you've ever seen. I have Blacklight mushroom tapestries, and I gotta say, my nephews just love it. And now you can have a Halloween like nobody else. With the Blacklight, these mushrooms just look so beautiful, so ethereal and magical. I also check out my video for when I turn them into jellyfish with really minimal effort. And honestly, it was for a high school graduation party and it was so much fun. So I'll be making more videos this month about really cool Halloween decorations you can make yourself. And you really got to stick around to see what it's going to look like when I put it all together. I'm Gardener Coo, and go out there and get creative.